for the perseverance and dedication shown in getting this bill across the finish line as we work together to send a clear message and a unifying message. In Georgia, we stand with our Jewish brothers and sisters today and every day.
Governor Brian Kemp signs into law an official definition of anti-Semitism. Good evening and welcome to Lawmakers on day 13 of the Georgia legislative session. I'm Donna Lowry in Atlanta. More on the bill signing ceremony in a moment. Cheese, sandwiches, and milk. That's what a parent disclosed that city schools of Decatur serve children whose parents couldn't afford to pay for school lunch. Covering school lunch costs is a problem in lots of school districts in Georgia. A lawmaker is here to tell us about a bill she thinks will address that issue. Also in the studio, a House member who believes addressing Georgia's low literacy rate begins with early learning, and that involves teachers trained to work with young children. We'll talk to her about that. And the President pro tempore of the Senate, John F. Kennedy, joins us to break down the Republican Senate caucus priorities. But first, let's get right down the Capitol with our Sarah Callis.
Hi, Donna. Emotions ran high at the Capitol today as a bipartisan group of lawmakers celebrated Governor Kemp signing a historic bill into law. Governor Brian Kemp signed House Bill 30, which creates a state definition of anti-Semitism, into law this afternoon.
There's been a troubling rise in anti-Semitism across our nation in recent years, especially following the horrific terrorist attacks on Israel on October the 7th that claimed the lives of over 1,200 Israelis. These acts of hatred have taken on many forms, including harassment, intimidation, and unfortunately violence. Georgia has not been immune to that horrible reality.
Representative Esther Panich, Georgia's only Jewish lawmaker, said she is elated with the bill signing and the bipartisan effort to make it happen.
Anti-Semitism is not political. It happens everywhere, and it needs to be an all-hands-on-deck approach to defeat it. And so I couldn't be more grateful to stand with my colleagues of both parties who helped us. I couldn't do it alone.
Anat Sultan-Didon, the Israeli Consulate General in Atlanta, attended the signing.
This statement here, the adoption of this bill, sends a strong statement in the face of anti-Semitism.
In the House, lawmakers remembered the Georgia soldiers who lost their lives this week in a drone attack. Sergeant William Rivers, Specialist Kennedy Sanders, and Specialist Breonna Moffett.
Each made their communities proud through their service and sacrifice. They have made Georgia proud. They have made their nation proud. They certainly made me proud. I'm proud to stand here as a Georgian and an American. And we oftentimes get into debates in here. This is not a debate. Everyone in here is standing up. Everyone in here recognizes the sacrifice they give.
The House returned to business after a moment of silence and passed House Bill 878. The bill aligns traffic laws for passing a postal truck with the laws for passing a garbage truck, including reducing the speed by at least 10 miles per hour below the posted limit. The bill passed 165 to 1. House Bill 976 also passed the House today. The bill would add a watermark to ballots. Sponsors of the bill say it will help voter confidence.
The bill reads that at least one of the security features on the paper must be visible so that the voter can see it with their eyes. The current security feature we have is not visible to the human eye. It requires a wand to verify the ceramic coating. And so this is a visible security feature that would be printed on the ballots.
And Representative Shelley Hutchinson provided an update on the foster children available for adoption that she has introduced in the House.
Instead of introducing a child available for adoption, after the last session, I went back and looked at all of the children I have introduced over the last 4 years, and I am here to tell you, not one single child is still available for adoption.
Hutchinson has introduced at least one child per week in the House the past several years. And it's Dyslexia Day at the Capitol. One senator shared his personal story about the condition.
The news was shocking to my wife and I, but here's the kicker. The clinician told us that even if we did nothing at all, our son was likely to be just fine. However, his confidence and enjoyment of school were significantly at risk because he was going to have to work twice as hard as other kids to do the same amount of learning academically. That broke our heart.
It's estimated that around 20% of Georgia's school-age kids are affected by some form of dyslexia. Estevez says some major changes need to take place in our schools to help combat the learning disability.
First, we have to change our curriculum in K through 12 education to align with the science of reading. It may surprise you, but kids today are not learning how to read the same way that you learned how to read. We have to go back to that. We also have to do tweaks, some supports that we provide students, including smaller class sizes and retention for students that continue to struggle to read so they can receive more intensive supports. We need to change the way the university system teaches our teachers how to teach kids how to read, because they are also using curriculum that is not aligned with the science of reading. And we need to make sure that our parents and our school systems are equipped with early warning tools and assessments.
The Senate also passed 2 bills that should help some Georgians' retirement benefits. SB 105 will boost multiplier rates for the public school workers' retirement plan. And SB 328 will allow an increase in dues and other administrative changes for law enforcement officers enrolled in the police officers' annuity and benefit fund. But the big news from the Senate today was license plates. A new license plate will be produced starting in 2026, celebrating the semi-quincentennial or 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. Unlike most of the other 30 or so license plates you can purchase in Georgia, this one will be one of 3 standard issue plates.
It is not a vanity plate. There is no additional cost to Georgians who select this plate. It would be the primary plate of Georgia between 2026 and 2030.
The logo on the left side of the plate will be designed by middle school students and chosen by the Georgia Department of Education. If you're wondering how you get semi-quincentennial,
Semi-quincentennial. Centennial is 100. Quin is 500. Semi is half of 500. 250.
The Senators further yield?
Absolutely, but just briefly.
Is there a reason we're not putting the word semi-quintennial on the license plate?
Absolutely, and the reason is I can't spell it.
Tomorrow on day 14, the Senate is expected to vote on a bill that seeks to legalize sports betting in Georgia. That's all for my Capitol Report. Donna, back to you.
Thank you, Sarah, for that report. Now, earlier this week, the Senate Majority Caucus announced its legislative priorities at a press conference. The group announced its finish the drill priorities, and among them, education, tax relief, public safety, workforce development, and tort reform. Joining me to talk about those issues is Senate President Pro Tem John F. Kennedy of Macon. He's chairman of the Senate Administrative Affairs and vice chair of the Banking and Financial Institutions Committees. Plus, he's on about 12 other committees. You stay busy. Welcome once again to Lawmakers.
Thank you, Donna.
As we begin, I have to admit, I had to look up what finish the drill means, and I knew it had something to do with football, but I found that the phrase means you don't quit when things get tough. So why does that work as the goal for the caucus?
Well, it works for the caucus because this really is a set of 2 years of goals for us. And so last year we had our caucus priorities that we worked on in 2023, and we're successful on some of those, but we've got some that we need to finish up on this year. And there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes during the off season. And so me and my other Senate colleagues, Republican colleagues, do things like we interface with our constituents, and we have meetings back home, and we really go around and listen to what the kitchen table issues are for our folks back home. And then we get together as a caucus and decide what are the most common sense, greatest needs that we can come to Atlanta and pass legislation and serve our constituents with. And so that really is the finish the drill, if you will. And so we've got a few more things we want to get done this year during 2024.
Yeah, so kitchen table issues, things you talk about around the kitchen table or the dinner table or whatever.
That's right. Things that are very important to
all of
families.
us.
Yes, things are important to families.
Right. So let's dig into some of those topics. The list starts with education, of course, and of course that's the biggest chunk of the budget. Last year, the Senate passed SB 233, the Georgia Promise Scholarship Act. It's a school choice, or what some call a school voucher bill, that would give parents $6,500 to pay for private or homeschool for qualified students. And the House shot down the bill last year with 16 Republicans voting with the Democrats. Are you a little bit more hopeful this year that this will pass through in the House?
I am. There's been a lot of work and a lot of discussion and, quite frankly, more education that's going on in the off season. And I've had some House members tell me that they know more about it, they recognize the need for it, and there's been a national drumbeat for school choice, and it really ought to be called parent choice or child choice, if you will, because what it does is recognizes that not every school is the best school to be educating that child. And when you've got parents that are involved in their child's education, and they recognize that there's a better school or better opportunity, and particularly when their child is in a failing school, there ought to be options. And that's what this measure recognizes. And as you said, we passed it in 2023, so our Finish the Drill theme is to try to make sure that the House passes this measure this year. The bill is still alive, so it sits as it came successfully out of the Senate with all 33 Republicans voting for it. It's before the House. We hope and expect that there will be another vote on it coming up this year, and we hope that it'll pass, and children and parents across the state are going to have opportunities to get their children out of failing schools. I mean, what more importantly can we do for our children than make sure they get an education? And this is making sure that the parents that want to be involved have those kind of choices and some opportunities.
Well, I'm sure there have been talks with the House Republicans who did vote against it, and a lot of that had to do with them feeling as though they didn't have alternatives, that the public schools are their only alternatives in some of their areas. They're in some small areas.
You know, that's right. And in fact, this was a hard choice and continues to be for some of our more rural legislators where the school system may be the largest employer in their district or in their county where they are. And also we've got lots of great school systems. And let me say this is not an anti-public school bill in any way. It is simply a recognition that not every school is perfect for every child. And so I think what has happened is that you've got House members that have continued to look at this and go, you know, I'm more comfortable with the idea that this is not anti-public school, although it was tried to be cast that way. Folks understand and recognize that that's not the case. This is about giving children and parents the best opportunities for their children to be successful in whatever school that may be.
Okay, let's get to some other issues. The
Sure.
next one, workforce development. It's on the list. And as we get into it, I want to show some numbers. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce says Georgia has 54 available workers for every 100 open jobs. Also, that Georgia's business environment is diverse, encompassing a rich agricultural economy, numerous professional sports teams, several prominent universities, and serving as the headquarters for several favored Fortune 500 companies. Lots of good things about Georgia. So what are the workforce development needs?
So thank you for putting those statistics, because what that tells us is that all Georgians should be proud of the fact that it is such an attractive state for businesses to come here, so that we're trying to create the environment from the legislature standpoint, as the governor is as well, of making Georgia the best place to work, live, and raise a family. And so what you see is that there's more job opportunities than we actually have Georgians ready or that are available to do those jobs. So that makes it incumbent upon us to make sure that we have a ready, trained workforce, so that those businesses will continue to come here. But the numbers mean that if you're in the workforce or you're looking to enter the workforce, there are a lot of opportunities. One of the areas that we have focused on and that we're focusing on this year, as a product of some Senate study committee work that we did over the summer with Senator Larry Walker from Houston County leading the efforts on this, is trying to figure out how do we best change or make more efficient the licensure process for military spouses whose families move to Georgia. Right now, there are 25,000 military spouses who have a trade, have a profession that they are licensed in another state, but they're trying to get processed in Georgia. And so we're trying to fast track that, if you will, so that those spouses can get those licenses more quickly. They can then enter the workforce. That's good for the family. That's good for Georgia. It's good for all of us all the way around. And so that, along with some other efforts, as well as our continued support for all the things we've done over the last few years for workforce development, is center, and we are dialed in to making sure that we continue that, because that's the best hope for the families going forward, is great economic and job opportunities. That, coupled with education that we talked about, really gives families and children the promise of what we want for Georgia's promise for families.
Okay, let's switch gears again to tort reform.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of time, but explain to people why that is such a priority for the Republican caucus.
It's a priority because it's been a growing problem for a number of years. Some of the problems we're trying to solve is when you have too many frivolous lawsuits that clog our court system, it doesn't just impact the litigants in that case, it impacts the rest of Georgians that need access to the courthouse, whether that means because you're involved in a lawsuit as a plaintiff or a defendant, or if you find yourself or someone in your family is going through the process, whether it's a criminal-related matter or otherwise. The courthouse ought to work efficiently. That plus the fact that the businesses have recognized and have basically come to the legislature and said, please make some changes in our civil justice system. And so one of the things that we're working on, and a bill that I expect to be heard this week, is going to be called direct action, which is simply a way that when someone is injured with a personal injury accident, that the insurance company is not named because they're not the party that was involved, they're not the trucking company that was involved, so the insurance company shouldn't be named. That's one example of where we're trying to make some small tweaks in the system so that it's simply more fair, so that those cases that need to be heard can be heard efficiently, and the frivolous lawsuits don't gum things up in the court system for all of our citizens, because everyone needs access to the courthouse.
Okay, we have a few seconds for you to talk about tax relief or tax reform, whatever you guys are calling it, but you've been doing a lot already.
We have, and thank you for that. And we're very pleased with what we did last year with the returning, in essence, of $2 billion of taxpayer money to taxpayers, because that's where it belongs. We're continuing to look at that, and we're going to roll back through the course of this year with the governor's leadership and also Republicans in the Senate, the state income tax rate from 5.49 eventually down to something hopefully we'll get to 4.99. And so we're very pleased about that, and I know that's got a lot of support. And again, just recognizing that taxpayer dollars is something that we have to spend very wisely, and when we don't need to spend them, we need to send them back to hardworking Georgians.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about all of those priorities.
Great, thank you,
always
Donna.
welcome to come back.
Thank you.
Coming up, a lawmaker discusses what Georgia is doing to help make sure those who work with children in child care centers are trained to teach early literacy.
Lawmakers is made possible by Georgia Farm Bureau. With over 80 years of helping everyone understand the importance of agriculture in our state. After all, ag is Georgia's #1 industry. Food and fiber production represents over $74 billion in output of Georgia's strong economy. The Georgia Farm Bureau legislative team works to represent producers across Georgia at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
People put their faith in PBS because they know that it is constantly delivering quality. It covers the whole of the United States. It's a free and independent media.
We go where the viewers are.
What are the conversations that are happening right now?
We feel that civil discourse is a civic responsibility. What we do is authentic reporting that people can trust.
We give time so you can hear voices on all sides of an issue.
This is the place that people turn to for stories that matter.
And they know that when they walk away, they will have learned something about the world around them.
That's why this makes PBS important for daily life and, in the end, our world.
Thank you for joining us.
Community. Learning, working, playing, celebrating, doing life is always better together. At GPB, we aim to provide you with the tools to be able to do life together well. Our mission to educate, inform, and entertain inspires everything from our wide range of programming to our stimulating radio conversations to our fun in-person events. We've got something for everyone. Visit gpb.org/community to learn more about our upcoming events.
Welcome back to Lawmakers. I'm Donna Lowry. We're going to spend some time on education bills, from early learning literacy to help with school lunches. Joining me are two Democratic lawmakers, Representative Becky Evans of Atlanta. She's on the House Education Committee. and Representative Imani Barnes of Tucker. She's on the House Higher Education Committee. Welcome to Lawmakers. I almost forgot what our name was. Okay, Representative Evans, we had yesterday the chair of the Georgia Literacy Council on, and you are on that council too, one of 30 on this big council. You had something to do with part of the council, and that is coaches for child care teachers.
Right. Well, actually, yes, I do want to talk about literacy coaches, but the work that I did on House Bill 538 was related to teacher instruction and certification. And so it's very important that we made sure that in our schools of teaching that teachers were learning to teach evidence-based reading. And in Georgia, we're a local control state, so we don't have the ability to tell school systems exactly what they have to teach, but we do have the ability to make sure that they are certified. And so I'm very proud of that work in that bill. My bill 537 was put into 538 for literacy in certification, working with the Professional Standards Commission. And we added it in for early child care workers too, because we know that literacy is it's an ecosystem from birth all the way through third grade and really from cradle to career.
And the people who are teaching and working with them need to know what they're teaching and how to teach it to young kids.
Yeah, and we had a problem. We kind of went, and this is a nationwide problem. We kind of went in the wrong direction about how to teach reading to our teachers, and so now we're kind of course correcting that, and we're making excellent progress. I'm very proud to be a part of this Literacy Council, and we're making good strides. I'm happy to talk about that some more if you'd like.
All right, we'll get to that in a moment. I want to make sure you don't think we're ignoring you, Representative Barnes. You are the lead sponsor of HB 510, and it's to help those who can't afford to pay for school lunches. Tell us about it.
HB 510 is called the Healthy Start Bill. It gives kids a healthy start. It will provide free school meals, not just lunch. So free school meals, their breakfast and their lunch, to our free and reduced children that qualify for free and reduced lunch.
Okay, and so right now that's not happening, and we've heard, I mentioned this story that made national news with the Decatur City Schools, but they're not the only ones. All school districts struggle with this, and for a time, I guess some of the pandemic relief money that came from the federal government helped take care of that.
That's right. So the money to fund free school lunches and free school meals this year was funded by the federal government, and we appreciate that. $6.3 million was given to the state to provide free school meals for our neediest children this year. That's over. It's over at the end of the school year, and that's why I'm here fighting for our youth in Georgia.
Yeah, I know you've got some bipartisan support on that. You're working on it.
That's right. It's bipartisan supported. We all feel like we need to feed our children.
Yeah. Okay. I'm getting back to you. I want to talk more about education, but the budget in particular. Tell us about some of the issues that are of concern to you.
Oh, great. Well, I want to say I'm very proud that in Georgia we've passed teacher pay raises. We've given $7,000 over the past 5 years. So that's really good news. And this is a very education-friendly budget that's being proposed, and especially for early child care. So I am very pleased. There's a working group on early child care, on early learning. And so for our pre-K classrooms, we're going to be decreasing our class size from 22 to 20. We're going to be increasing the pre-K teacher and assistant teacher salaries to be in line with kindergarten. We're going to be increasing the funds for furnishing a new pre-K classroom from $8,000 to $30,000. And then a big piece of it is House Bill 941, which we just passed out of the Education Committee, where schools can use capital outlay funds to build new pre-K classrooms. And that's really important because right now they're penalized. They're required legally to build K through 12 classrooms, but now they can use capital outlay funds to build pre-K classrooms.
And a lot of people don't realize that that's been a problem that's behind the reason there aren't as many pre-K slots available.
That's exactly right. And one thing that we still need to do, and I know it's on the list to do, but I haven't seen it, is that half of our pre-K providers are private, so we need to make sure we we give lease arrangement agreements so that they can borrow those funds in order to build these new pre-K classrooms on the private side as well.
So the bottom line is we will see more slots open?
Yes, absolutely, and there's such a need. And I will say, as far as outstanding need, we need to do more for the infant and early child care. There's a huge gap in funding. Federal funding is coming to an end, and child care, you can ask anyone with children. It's a real problem. We have like a third of our, they did a recent survey, and a third of families with young children were saying that they had to leave their jobs because they couldn't find affordable, high-quality child care for their jobs. And we also need to pay our child care workers more, too.
I know, there is a lot to it, but at least it's moving in the right direction.
Right, I feel very good about this budget. And the other quick thing I'll say is that there's good funding for transportation and school safety in this budget. Both of those, the allotments being increased for transportation, for school safety, it's going to be an annual line item budget, so schools can choose how to use those dollars, maybe even to pay their school resource officers.
Right. Okay.
Good.
And I'm going to switch gears on that again. So, Representative Mars, I want you to talk about another of your bills, the Empath Georgia Act. What is it about, and what led to you even drafting this legislation?
The Empath Georgia Act would implement empath units in our emergency rooms. Empath units are emergency psychiatric assessment, treatment, and healing units. So it's a more holistic way to treat mental health crisis. It's designed to treat you within 24 hours, or you'll see someone within 24 hours instead of having to go to the ER and be admitted and get a bed. So it's freeing up beds for our emergency rooms.
Oh, wow.
It will get your mental health issue addressed faster with psychiatric professionals, psychiatrists, and students who are getting ready to be psychiatrists. So it's these empath units are in I believe 20 other states.
Oh, wow.
And South Carolina just got a $35 million grant to implement empath units in their state. So.
Yeah. So what it's saying is, at the emergency room level,
yes,
when you start looking at people who have mental health issues, that we start dealing with that right at the emergency room level.
Right
so
at the emergency room.
Specific beds, specific staff, all of that.
Yes. So you won't have to be having a mental health crisis and go through the ER process about getting your blood pressure taken and your blood taken, and then they have to diagnose you with a mental health crisis, and then you get treatment. In these empath units, you go straight to the empath unit and you're getting treatment right then.
Yeah. Tell us the acronym again. EM stands for emergency room.
EM and then PATH, P-A-T-H. So it's emergency psychiatric assessment, treatment, and healing.
Wow.
Yeah.
How are you doing on that bill?
It's getting bipartisan support.
Right.
Let's get it done. It's proven to save us money. It's proven to have faster treatment. It's proven to free up beds in our hospitals. And as we just closed down Atlanta Medical Center, I think this is imperative for our state.
Yeah. I know we talked about budgets. There's always a fiscal note. Have you looked at that yet?
I'm waiting for my fiscal note. I have been approved for a fiscal note. We'll see how much this costs the state. But our Governor Kemp has allotted or appropriated money for mental health. So hopefully we can get some of that allotted to these empath units.
Okay, we'll keep up on that. Anything that you wanted to add?
Thank you. I'm super excited about that, and thank you so much for your work and for your work on school lunches.
Thank you for working as well.
And I did want to say, I did want to say literacy coaches, that is the next big question in the rollout of the Literacy Act. And the state does have a plan this year to train 32 teachers in the 16 RESAs across the state, and they'll be like train the trainers. And the Deal Center for Language and Learning is doing a survey of all our school districts to see what other resources they might need to make sure they can staff on-site literacy coaches. So that's to, we'll see what happens with that.
A lot going on with literacy. Thank you both for coming on with great
Thank
bills. That does it for Lawmakers today. We'll be back tomorrow when the Senate is expected to take up sports betting. We'll see you then. Have a great night.